So if we've covered the two kind of ends of the spectrum,
Sure.
now let's fill in and start
Okay.
exploring some of the ones in between.
Okay.
So maybe if you wanted to, and I think there's could be different names for this, but the Lutheran model.
Sure.
Is that a fair description, or
Right.
maybe if you can discuss
Sure,
that?
we can talk about the Lutheran Church. The Lutheran Church is going to be kind of closer to the Anabaptist Church in some ways, a little less engaged with culture than some of our other models. The Lutheran tradition, of course, comes from the Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther, a Catholic priest who's worried about the Catholic Church, trying to reform the church from within. And unfortunately, the Reformation from within doesn't work, and he ends up being really the father of a modern denomination. It never was his intention, but that's what happens. So in the Lutheran tradition, one of the hallmarks of this tradition is something often called two kingdoms. It's this idea that we need to think about the kingdom of God and the kingdom of man. And Luther likes to talk about law and gospel. And the law is that which restrains evil and keeps back problems in society, and the gospel is that law of love that God gives us for his people to move forward God's purposes and kingdoms. So that's kind of some of the emphasis. Another key hallmark in the Lutheran tradition is really their view of government. In general, Lutherans are going to say, government is primarily necessary to restrain evil. After the fall, sin comes in, we all start to do things that we shouldn't do. Someone needs to come in and to keep sinful people from being so sinful. And that's, in many ways, the role of government. So that's an emphasis in this tradition.
Okay. And so strength and a weakness here again?
So I think a strength of this tradition is, I think, that reminder. I think the law and gospel piece is important. That there is law that helps us order society, and that we need society ordered. But at the same time, there's still the gospel, there's God's law that reigns, and that we as Christians, I think sometimes we can kind of conflate the two, and we can sort of forget about God's law and the importance of what he teaches us and how we are to order our lives as we're seeking to live in greater holiness. Now, a weakness of the tradition, sometimes this two kingdoms, this emphasis is sort of, there's the world of the law, and then there's the world of the gospel. Somehow there's a sense of that we're just dividing things into two, and that who we are as Christians may not creep so much into our vocations, for example. I mean, Luther is trying to say the church should be shaping Christians, and so that you're shaped in holiness so that affects your life. But there have been criticisms of this tradition that sometimes the idea is on Sunday you do your Sunday things, and other days it doesn't matter. That's not really what the tradition teaches, but if you emphasize so much this distinction between those things that are God's and those things that are not, sometimes you can forget what it means to be salt and light and to be following God in all of your life, in your vocation and your everyday work.
Yeah, so the critique is, are they really thinking through how the gospel impacts all these different areas?
Exactly.
Whether that's fair or not, I know
Right.
that different people in the tradition are recognizing that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the classic criticism of the Lutheran tradition would probably, in our time, come from World War II, when, as Adolf Hitler is gaining power, many, but not all, Lutheran churches were in some ways complicit. If Hitler said, you need to take these things out of your churches, they did. Mm-hmm. Why didn't they resist? And so there's questions about why the churches didn't resist. Of course, there were Lutherans who were resisting from within the tradition. But there's sort of this idea that if you take these principles too far, that you can just say, whatever government wants to do is fine, we'll just do our own thing.